Chapter 1. Behold, the day breaketh. As Jethro came through the low gate, he saw Abdullah working on a vase. It was a lovely thing to behold, large and of a colour heavenly blue. The graceful arms of the potter embraced the vase as he painted upon the clear field clusters of almond blossoms. Jethro stood for a moment watching the potter turn from his vase to the cluster of almond blossoms, which almost touched his bare brown shoulders. The almond tree stood covered with its mist of silvery whiteness against the clear sky, and the wonder of the day, morning, hovering over all. "What a glorious vase," he said, "and how perfectly you are getting the sky and the almond tree into it. When I look at it, the one becomes lost in the other." "As it should be," said Abdullah, not looking up from his work. "When you have a perfect concept of anything, you can easily reproduce it." "I suppose the most difficult thing, then, is to acquire the perfect concept," continued Jethro, gazing from the vase to the sky and tree and back again. "It is not so difficult as it is exacting. Many people grasp at things and think to reproduce them without understanding much more than the surface covering. As a result, they have a lifeless thing. As the child, when he attempts to draw the picture of a man, as he matures with study, he finds that a study of the structure and anatomy of man enables him to paint something beneath the skin that makes the thing more lifelike and natural." Jethro listened intently. "It is as some of the students who come for instruction. When you tell them that they are perfect because God is perfect, they immediately rush away feeling that they have the whole science in their grasp, and are disappointed when they cannot reproduce, even in a small way, what they have learned. We must study and ponder and learn the simple lessons before we do the larger ones. I do not want to be discouraging to the student, for the moment they hear the truth spoken, there is some demonstration that they can make with what they know. But if they were only willing to demonstrate that truth and not try to demonstrate things that are beyond their ken at that time, they would rise to glorious heights on a solid foundation of truth, which they had erected themselves and which could not be swept away by the storms. Many a times a student has made a beautiful and spectacular demonstration without supporting it by solid evidence, and when the testing storm dashes against the house, it fell and left him a wreck on the sands. I have heard you say to the class that simplicity is the key note to truth, and yet this all seems confusing to me. It should not be so. When the seed of truth is first sown, it has in it the promise of a rose, but it has certain steps and stages to go through, and when it has performed these stages, it will just naturally open in all its glory. If it is forced and at last opened by mistaken, loving fingers, it fails utterly, because it had not arrived through steady growth at the place of demonstration. There is never a moment when the truth seeker cannot find something wholly within his ken that he can demonstrate over. Only the problems that we are able to meet at that time confront us. And if we work these out, persistently clinging to the fact that we are growing to the light, there will be larger things to prove, and grander proofs will come to us as we go along the way. A soft cool morning breeze showered almond blossoms over them. From the distance called the first morning birds. Out of the east, the sifted gold of morning sun was changing the purple into shell pink. It was the natural time of prayer and thanksgiving, and so the boy took his harp and sang his morning hymn, while the potter sat in silence, meditating on the wonders of life, its beauty, its happiness. The heavens declare the glory of him who made all things. Each day repeats the story, each night its tribute brings. To earth's remotest border, his mighty power is known. In beauty, grandeur, order, his handiwork is shown. The sweet, warm voice quivered and fluttered on the air like some delighted butterfly, and then became silent. They sat for a while in silence, with eyes raised to heaven, and with hearts full of gratitude as they prayed and felt the impetus of their prayers rush into them. And Abdullah read from the sacred scrolls, "Fret not thyself because of evildoers, neither be thou envious against the workers of iniquity. Depart from evil and do good, and dwell for evermore. The righteous shall inherit the land and dwell therein forever. The law of God is in his heart, and none of his steps shall slide. For the kingdom is the Lord's, and he is the governor among the nations." After the reading had finished, the boy sang again, "In daily contemplation of thee I take delight. O let my meditation lay hold of thee aright. Aid me in the suppression of idle thought of work. Keep me from all transgression, Redeemer, strength, and Lord." "And so be it," finished Abdullah as he turned again to his vase. If everyone in the world would sit for a few moments of rejoicing at the beginning of the day, before they began the contact with their brothers, they would go through the happy day moving mountains of error or evil. Prayer in the morning is like tuning an instrument before you begin playing on it. Some people arise and hurry out unprepared. When a storm comes, they hope to quiet it with sweet harmony, but passing the hands over the strings of their instrument, they find it out of tune, and the storm rages on while they try to tune it amidst the roar of mortal thinking. How much better had they paused for a moment and put it in harmony with praise and thanksgiving at the beginning of the day. This is what fortifies us against the strife of the world. This is being prepared to meet the lions in the street. This is what makes our passing as that of exquisite music. A few moments at the break of day, alone with their Creator, acknowledging, giving thanks, receiving instructions. That is what makes the day as a golden globe wherein no shadow or worry lies. He turned again to his vase. Jethro watched him as he worked, constantly looking at the spray of blossoms near him. How often he turned to them to be sure he had their right size, colour and shape. He was a true artist. As if he sensed the boy's thoughts, the potter spoke again about the vase. When a man has a perfect concept of anything, it is not difficult to reproduce that thing. Now, for years I have had the almond tree with me and have studied it in all its changes. I have come to know the silvery whiteness of its blossoms as distinguished from the bluish white of other flowers of the morning. I have gained a perfect concept of it, and I am producing it here on this vase that it may go into the city and bring with it a breath of the country, of the open. But suppose, for instance, instead of this inanimate vase, we take the body or temple of man. We pass hundreds of men daily who have not the true concept of what a perfect body is or should be. Their drawings are bad. I always feel as though I should like to erase their drawing and start a new one for them. I instinctively want to give them the true concept of health or joy and happiness, that they may picture it forth on the temple and make it a glorious thing, a thing of beauty and a thing of use. There is a grand and glorious law governing this all. It is the blast upon the trumpet, which shall awaken the dead. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So simple that it seems difficult. People pass it by every day without noticing it. They will say to you that it is all theory, that there is nothing true about it, never stopping to consider that the very sick thoughts they are holding are manifesting and proving to them the truth of the statement in a way that should make them leap up into understanding. And yet, how simple when a man does waken and sees that his thinking has made him or brought him where he now stands. He immediately starts the reversing process, and if he faint not, he shall see results. Some are discouraged because they cannot change the conditions at once. They forget that they have sowed and harvested for years crops of error. They expect to come to the field and sprinkle wheat over it and see an immediate fruitage, forgetting for the moment that that very field has been thickly sown with tares. But the true overcomer recognizes that the law which he is now putting into operation for good is the very one that he has been distorting and using to produce evil, and that the weeding process must now begin, and the constant planting of good thoughts, good deeds, and words. This is all a glorious work to the overcomer. No matter how great the problem before him, he moves towards it, and as he does, he finds plenty of proof that he is gaining each day, until he at last finds that the steep hill over which he had to go has diminished and faded away, and that after all it was made up of countless little steps which, when taken day after day, finally brought him to the height of attainment without ever tackling the thing as a whole. O ye of little faith, why will we go on failing to do the little things? For of them the big things are made. If we are to move a mountain, we must begin by taking away some small portion of it. Every grain of dust has to be moved before the whole mountain will be put away, and it is the realizing of this that makes the work worthwhile. We can begin just where this finds us and take away the obstacles which confront us today. Perhaps this is the tendency to think discouraging thoughts about the possible outcome. Maybe it is a mental laziness, or maybe it is a feeling that my problem is greater than yours. But anyway, whatever it is just a little grain of dust which must be moved away today, so that tomorrow more debris can be removed. And at last, by daily cleansing and putting away, we will find the mountain has been entirely moved, and that we have attained the heights of demonstration. And one of the greatest aids to accomplishment is the morning prayers, the morning bath we might call it, when the mind is washed pure and clean from evils and set right for the day. When the perfect concept comes to man, he gradually begins to show it forth in his life. He begins to realize that he is something more than a reflection. He begins to identify himself with the Father within and not with the body. Jesus did this constantly. He was always one with the Father within. I and my Father are one. He never associated himself with the body. The body was where the concept was being worked out. It was as the canvas of a master where he drew his pictures and had his demonstrations and made manifest the Word. The Word became flesh and dwelt among them. You are more than body. Body is not man. Man is the something which cooperates with the Father within and which controls the body absolutely. Do you mean that man is not body? Broke in Jethro. That is exactly what I mean, replied Abdullah. There is nowhere any authority for such belief. Man is one with God. Man is the thing which has authority and dominion. Body never had dominion over a single thing. It is the animating influence, the mind which was also in Christ Jesus, which did the work. And that is what we are. We are the very power which moves and controls the body. It is our canvas upon which we can see the Word made flesh. It is our practice ground. Now I see, said Jethro. Now I see how we have dominion, how we have authority. Always heretofore I have thought of a man as body, not especially the material body, but just as body. And I can see how utterly impossible it is to make demonstrations with such a belief. We are divine heirs, sons. We are not bodies. We control the body by our thoughts. We trace upon it what we will. We fashion it as we desire. We find with this new grand freedom that we escape the body or bondage. It is as if it was something which we held from us. It is only a concept of what we are holding in mind. It is just like that vase. You are not in it, and it has no control over you, yet you can fashion it, paint it, decorate it in the manner you like. You hold it from you. Though it crashed to earth, it would no way affect you, for you are one with the Father within and have power to take it up again. I have power to lay it, life, down, and I have power to take it up again. You are the divine spark, which is the true man, and which is a little lower than the angels, endowed with authority and power. It is very glorious to come into this dominion, to hold the body away from us, as it were, and not consider it a factor in our lives. It is very wonderful to consider it as a vase upon which we, the potters, through our association with the Father within, can trace designs of beauty, can control it perfectly, never to be troubled with it, never to be in submission to it, or to listen to its complaints. For the clay cannot reply to the potter. Eternal mind the potter is, and thought the eternal clay. Then our bodies are thought, and the eternal mind is the mind with which we are one, and with which we operate and control the clay or thought. I wish everybody would see this and handle their bodies after this manner. It would put to naught all sickness and misery in less time than anything I know of. Once they regarded their bodies as a detached sort of thing upon which they were working out the design of their highest concept, they would hear no complaint from it, for they would be in authority. And while Jethro talked, Abdullah had painted into his vase a butterfly of pale gold, resting ever so slightly on the almond branch. Oh, how beautiful it is, how lightly it touches the blossoms, and how full of life, said Jethro, coming nearer. It is your inspiration, that wonderful thing which never more than touches matter and feeds among the lilies. That is the end of chapter 1.